What's happening, people? I hope you're all well. So, a boxing report, and I'm going to cover a few things here. So, I've got a few notes. The first one I'm going to talk about is Terence Crawford beating David Avanesyan, and he got the knockout in the 6th round. Now, the fight, Avanesyan is a come forward fighter, and he likes to put on the high guard and walk his opponents down. Terence Crawford is actually very versatile. He can fight orthodox, he can fight southpaw, he's got power, very patient as well. I thought Shawn Porter was beating Terence Crawford, but Crawford was patient. Against Kell Brook, I thought that Kell Brook was doing very well against Terence Crawford, and Kell Brook was Terence Crawford very patient. So Terence Crawford is a very good fighter, and he got the knockout in the 6th round. However, there is some controversy around the gloves, because the gloves apparently broke in the last round, and Terence Crawford was allowed to continue with those gloves and not put on another pair of gloves. So that's a bit strange, and I think that if it was the other way round, that if David Avanesyan's gloves had broke, then he would have been forced to change them. So why was Terence Crawford allowed to carry on with gloves that were broken? Because that is potentially giving him an advantage, because if there's less padding, then there's going to be more power on Terence Crawford's punches. So that is very strange. So, obviously I'm going to mention that. Now, Rydell beat Norman Neely by first round TKO. So Rydell is more of a journeyman. Rydell he actually had a fight against James Toney a long time ago. I'm just trying to get up the box rec. Rydell 27 wins, 14 by KO, 7 defeats, one of those by stoppage, and then 1 draw. He's 41 years old. He had a fight against James Toney, then he was out of the ring. I think he went to prison. And then he was out of the ring for around 14 years. And then he came back, put some wins together, then lost against Jermaine Franklin, although that fight, I think that Rydell, if I remember, did quite well in that fight. And then Jermaine Franklin obviously went and just had a good performance against Dillian Whyte. I thought he beat Dillian Whyte. So, but he's been mainly operating as a journeyman. He lost to Pulev, Hrgovic, a guy called Marcin Siwi, and Otto Wallin, Stefan Shaw, and he sometimes does look like he's in journeyman mode. He doesn't always look like he's up for it, or maybe gives it a round and then maybe hasn't come in the best of shape. I mean, back in the days he was weighing in, 2001, his pro debut, he was 200 pounds. Last fight weighed in 255, but obviously he's older now. But perhaps he's against Jermaine Franklin, 238 pounds. Last fight 255 pounds. So maybe he's not always in the best of shape, but he's got technical skill, and you can see it. And he caught Norman Neely with a straight right hand, and early on in the first round, Norman Neely never recovered from it, and couldn't beat the count. So he gets a surprise win there. I'm guessing, Norman Neely was the home fighter there. Norman Neely 13-0 going into the fight with 8 KOs, so he was obviously the one that was expected to win there. That's not what happened. Teofimo Lopez beat Sandor Martin by split decision, and Teofimo Lopez, he got dropped, I think, twice in that fight, to be honest with you. Only one of them counted. And who's Teofimo Lopez talking about fighting next? Who was it he was talking about fighting next? I remember. Teofimo, let me see who it was. Teofimo Lopez. Next fight. Let's see. Regis Prograis. I mean, just thinking right about now, I think Regis Prograis has a lot of skill, and I think Prograis probably. I wouldn't be surprised if Prograis beats Lopez, to be honest with you. But, you know, it is what it is. Sandor Martin beat Mikey Garcia. He's a competent southpaw, and he obviously dropped Lopez twice. Now, Sandor Martin, I don't think he's known as a puncher. If he's not a puncher, then obviously that's a bit of a concern. Lopez was down against who is it? Gamboa. Is that his name? No, it's not. That's not his name. Getting his name wrong. Let me get his name right. Box rec. He was down against Cambosis and he was down against Martin. So is there a punch resistance issue there? Anyway, moving on from that, Gerard Anderson beat Jerry Forrest in the second round. That was very impressive because Jerry Forrest is a tough operator. Most people don't get rid of Jerry Forrest like that. I mean, look, Jerry Forrest has been in there with, you know, only stopped once prior to going into the fight. And Jerry Forrest has been in there with Kubrat Pulev, went the distance, got a draw against Michael Hunter, which, if I remember rightly, I think he won that fight. Went in there with Zili Zhang and got a draw. Carlos Takam, he's went the distance with. Jermaine Franklin went the distance with. If I remember rightly, that fight was controversial in the sense that people thought Jerry Forrest won that fight. So Jerry Forrest is a tough operator who is busy, makes people uncomfortable, has some skills. He then, you know, against what's his name? Against Carlos Takam, he let himself down. I don't think he really tried in that fight, or I don't know, maybe something was wrong going into the fight. However, you know, Jerry Forrest is a tough operator, and for Gerard Anderson to go in there and beat him in 2 rounds is very, very good. And I think that Gerard Anderson has shown that obviously he's got real potential to go on and do good things. I mean, you know, he clearly has hand speed. He's got very good hands for a heavyweight in terms of speed. He's very, you know, nimble. He fights orthodox. He fights southpaw. He's 23 years old. There's a lot to like about Gerard Anderson. So maybe not get caught so much. He got caught against Kingsley eBay. He got caught. Apparently, I can't remember his last fight so much. Apparently, got caught in the one just before the one he just had against Forrest, and he got caught against Forrest. So maybe he needs to watch his defense a bit, but also maybe that's to do with the opposition he's in with. I want to see what happens with Gerard Anderson. F.A. Ajagba is going to be fighting Oscar Rivas on the 14th of January. Brilliant fight. Oscar Rivas, very, very, very. He's very quick at the start of a fight, and he's very athletic at the start of a fight, and you know, he's very, very explosive at the start of a fight, but he tends to fade very badly. I'll see it against the guy he fought at the Bridgerweight fight. It was quite a recent fight where I think he was hurting the guy but not knocking him out, and something. I'm just going to go on BoxRec quickly and just see who that guy was. Rizicki, you know, he fought Rizicki in Canada, and he won the fight unanimous decision, but I seem to remember him fading in that fight. And then when he fought Dillian Whyte, he started off really explosive, faded. Fabio Maldonado, I remember that fight. That was a fight where he also... No, I remember the Hervey Herbu fight. I think I remember him fighting Hervey Herbu. And I seem to remember him fading in that fight. I think it was that fight. And I think this is a pattern with Oscar Rivas to fade in fights. So if F.A. Ajagba can, and he's got the height and reach to do it, if he can keep Oscar Rivas at range, you know, maybe pretend to, you know, stand in range of Oscar Rivas's punches, but then take a step back at the last second, in the first round. So he lets Oscar Rivas punch himself out a bit. He uses the range and the distance very cleverly in the first few rounds, and then gradually just starts to work his jab and just jabs Oscar Rivas to a 10-round decision. He should be able to do that. The problem is with Efe Ajagba is he squares up when the opponent comes up to Efe Ajagba. I've seen it. He squares up when he doesn't know when he really even needs to clinch or get out. He just squares up, puts the earmuffs on, and lets his opponent work. Now with Oscar Rivas, who's very explosive, and the inside is where he's dangerous, that's not a good idea. He needs to use the distance well, he needs to use range control, and he needs to use his jab in this fight. He can jab his way to a 10-round win, but he needs to be very sensible because Oscar Rivas' punching power is real. Dillian White found that out, Brian Jennings found that out. So, you know, Efe Ajagba, this is winnable fight, because against Frank Sanchez that was his step up and he failed. But if he fights in the right way against Oscar Rivas, he can win that fight. Stefan Shaw versus Guido Vianello, I think that's on the undercard. It's not listed on BoxRec, but I heard that fight's going to be on there. I don't remember too much of Stefan Shaw. I'm not going to lie about that. I have watched him before, I think. I think that what I will say, right, I'm not going to come out and say who I think is going to win the fight because I don't remember too much of Stefan Shaw. But one thing I'll say about Vianello is he's got the technical skill, but I think he's vulnerable. I think that Vianello, if he steps up against a strong fighter like Kingsley EBay ain't the most talented. I mean, I'm not going to talk about his talent, but what I was meant to say is eBay's not the most experienced. Apparently eBay only had one amateur fight, turned pro, and you know he's giving it a go. And he, you know, eBay, from what I remember, he beat Vianello and got a draw. It got given a draw. So eBay, you know, Vianello, if he comes up against someone, I reckon if he comes up against a guy not even with the most skill, a bit more skilled than eBay, strong guy who has, you know, tries to bully him a bit, I think that he gets beat. I mean, I remember watching him in the amateurs, and I know he was younger back then. I remember watching him in the amateurs against Arslanbek Makhmudov. He was getting roughed up in there, and I think the fight got stopped on a cut or something like that. But he was getting roughed up in there. Watch him against eBay getting roughed up in there. Even you know, a bit of distress signals against or like looking a bit roughed up at times against Rios, who, you know, isn't the best fighter. Or Jay McFarlane was catching him as well. I don't think he hits the hardest either. So, you know, there are things to like about Vianello, such as his technical skill, but he steps up, he gets beat, in my opinion. You know, someone who can make it rough in there for him. Now, Arslanbek Makhmudov is going to be fighting against Michael Wallisch on the 16th of December. And I think that Arslanbek Makhmudov knocks him out in a round or two, to be honest with you. That Wallisch is made for someone like Makhmudov. Makhmudov punches very hard. Wallisch doesn't like it when it gets rough in there. When he feels one punch or two punches or gets hit with something half clean, he's going to look for a way out of the fight. Simple as. There's going to be obviously other fights, but those are the fights that I sort of put up there. So, you know, I'll be back covering more fights. What do you think of the fights that I spoke about? What do you think of the glove situation with Terence Crawford? Let me know. And I'll be back soon with another video. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, hit the notification bell so you get a notification when I make a new video. And I'll see you on the next video.